All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's online mental skills workshop. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Meagan Ferguson. I am a mental performance consultant and owner of Mind Matters, which is a mental performance training practice here on Prince Edward Island. I first off want to say thank you to REC PEI and the participants with the Go For It program for inviting me to speak with you guys today about mental training. This is my first time actually doing a pre-recorded session, so I invite you guys to speak with me after, send me an email. There will be a little bit of a contact survey at the end because I'd love to get to know you guys, and it's very strange for me not to get to know my athletes or my participants before starting a session. So feel free to reach out after. I'd love to hear your experience or your thoughts on this session. So since this is a pre-recording, feel free to pause this whenever you may need. If you need to, get up and stretch your legs, get a drink of water. There will be instances within this session where I'll ask you to actually engage in some exercise. So again, feel free to pause the video whenever necessary. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Born and raised here in Prince Edward Island, growing up playing a whole bunch of different sports, mostly team-oriented, from hockey, soccer, basketball, rugby. Following high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to pursue as far as education, but I knew I was still very interested in sport. So I ended up enrolling in the Sport and Leisure Management program here at Holland College. Ended up playing soccer and hockey for my years there. But the best thing about that program is I got my first real taste into what sports psychology actually was. There was an instructor there at the college that was working within the program, and I started to apply what I was learning in her class actually to my game. And I noticed a tremendous difference, not just in my performance as an athlete, but my day-to-day life as well. And following that, I said, this is something that I think I'd like to pursue. So following my time at Holland College, I ended up going to the University of New Brunswick, where I did a Bachelor of Rec and Sports Studies with a concentration again in psychology there. My time at UNB was again phenomenal. Got to play hockey over there for the women's hockey team, but as well got my first real taste into female tackle football. And it really sparked my interest, not just within the sport of football itself, but the mentality involved with that specific sport, the leadership, the team cohesion, the motivation that is involved with that. So all that being said, I decided, yep, this is something I'd really like to pursue, and went out to the University of Ottawa, where I completed my Master's of Sports Psychology in the Human Kinetics Department in 2018. So that's a bit about my formal education. A couple of professional accreditations and affiliations I do have there, one being with the Canadian Sports Psychology Association. That number may have changed a little bit now. I think we have actually increased. It might be one of 12 in Atlantic Canada now, but I'm also part of the American Association as a member, as well as certified in things such as mental health first aid and mindfulness facilitation for athletic performance. When I'm not a mental performance consultant, I am an instructor and a coach here on the island. So I'm also certified in some NCCP courses, High Five, and more. So all that being said, why Mind Matters? It's widely supported by research that by incorporating mental skills training into a team or with an athlete in the preseason, there's a chance of it positively influencing things such as focus or emotional regulation or the ability to perform under pressure. So mental performance consultants like myself work with individuals for a number of reasons like I've listed below, such as how to focus or refocus under pressure, how to get in the zone for competition, overcoming different mental blocks or distractions that could come in between the athlete and their goals. But what sets Mind Matters apart is I like to say there's no cookie cutter approach to mental training. Mental performance consultants have different avenues they'd like to pursue, different techniques that they find useful and successful. My philosophy is strongly rooted in hands-on experiential learning. So what I mean by that is doing activity, getting athletes up and moving with that skill, debriefing and discussing how that skill impacted that specific activity, and then finding out how to further apply that to their game or to their life. So hands-on, getting the movement, getting them experiencing what that skill is actually used for. What a lot of my athletes end up coming back to me and saying is they notice how the skill that they've applied to either their soccer game or their football game has really impacted their day-to-day life. So life transferable skills is another huge thing with Mind Matters. You may notice that you're able to focus better, not just on your sport, but in school or with your relationships. So having that being in career, academics, sport, whatever that may be, these skills are life transferable. What I like to say is I like to cover the fundamentals by keeping the fun within the mental. So a little wordplay there, but I do enjoy hearing the experiences from the athletes and what activities they enjoyed and how they, tell their friends about the activity they've done. So I encourage you guys to have that fun within the mental today, and let me know what you think. So today's overview, we're going to go over some basics first. So I'm going to go over a quick little overview of what mental training is. We're going to break it down into an activity into two parts. So this is where I would encourage you guys to pause the video when you need to. But in between those two parts, we're going to go over some material about the ABCs, and that will hopefully help you not just with the second part of that activity, but moving forward with your journeys here as well. We're going to close with some further applications and again, listing that contact information if you guys like to get in touch at the end. So mental performance training. There's a lot of buzzwords and catchy phrases that are thrown around lately that sound really good, such as mentally tough or mentally prepared, or a big one like positive mindset. And a lot of the time, people hear these words and these phrases and they know it's important and they know it's something they should have, but they don't exactly know what it is or how to build that. So my job as a mental performance consultant is to help facilitate that learning and see those actions turn into success. When we're talking about mentally tough, that can be summed up as identifying what could or will happen and preparing how to react in that moment. So building the resiliency to adapt to changes, maintain that collective composure when you're under pressure. Mentally prepared, very similar. I compare this kind of to a fire drill. And we all recall doing fire drills as children. We'd go through it multiple times a year. The exit strategy, close the windows, don't take anything with you, remain calm. So we go over fire drills multiple times a year, but very rarely are we actually put in the real life scenario of a fire. But the whole point of going through the fire drills is not knowing exactly how we want to act in that situation, but how we want to feel. So emotional pairing with that situation. So in a nutshell, that is what mental training is. It's helping you become mentally prepared for what could or will happen, and also identifying how you want to react and feel in that situation. Finally, positive mindset. So are you feeding yourself good or bad thoughts in a nutshell? No one will talk to yourself more than yourself. So you want to make sure that what you're feeding is positive and it's actually helping you rather than hindering you. So application of psychological practices, techniques, and strategies to performance-specific contexts. So this is where we hear professions such as sport and exercise psychologists. So it's not just sports psychology, as I mentioned before, these are life transferable skills, but we see performance training in a lot of different professions such as performing arts or military and first responders. So what you're learning today, again, isn't just relevant to sport and health and physical activity, it's also quite relevant to other realms as well. But just like anything, just like building a new muscle, just like learning a new habit or a new skill, it's very important to realize that mental skills training takes a lot of commitment, practice, but most importantly, the willingness to get outside of your comfort zone. And I do have a little activity that I'm going to share my video with to help walk us through this together. I encourage you guys to participate in this as well. So hopefully everybody can see me. What I want you to do to try to understand what I mean by this comfort zone analogy is to comfortably, without even thinking about it, I want you to cross your arms. And I want you to sit with that comfortably, look down at your arms, notice what you see. So for me, my comfort zone is left arm over my right arm with right fingers touching my left bicep. For me, this is comfort. I could sit like this all day and not even think about it. So I want you to sit with that feeling for another moment. Next, what I want you to do is you're actually going to shake out your arms at your side. And now you're going to cross your arms the opposite way that you just did. Don't rush it. Make sure you get it right. And now I want you to, again, look down at your arms. Notice the difference that you see from the first time. So your arms should probably be crossed the opposite ways. But I also want you to notice how it feels. It likely feels quite different from the first time. So again, shake out your arms one more time and cross your arms that exact same way that you just did, the exact same way. And again, it may take a little time, that's fine, just make sure you get it right. And one more time, shaking them out and crossing back that same way. Okay, so what you may notice about that activity is when I asked you to cross your arms the first time, it was easy. You didn't have to think about it, it was very natural. When I asked you to change things up, it took a little bit of time, may have felt a little uncomfortable, but the more you did it, not only did it become more comfortable, but it became a little quicker and easier as well. So the whole analogy there of getting outside your comfort zone, we know what comfort is, we know that it feels good and we can do it all day. But as soon as we start challenging ourselves to get outside of that comfort zone, the uncomfortable actually becomes a lot more comfortable and a little quicker as well. So I hope you enjoyed that little activity. I'm going to stop my video again so we can go back to the slideshow. And I think there we go. So all that being said, we talk about comfort zone, we're talking about these life transferable skills, but really pairing these mental skills with health, wellness, and well-being is very important. So I have a little sphere up above there, as you can see. There's a couple logos, there's an arm flexing, there's an apple, there's a timer, and there's a brain. So when we're talking about training either as an elite athlete or even just going about our day-to-day lives and wanting to make healthier decisions, we can really break down it into 4 main elements. The red one, the arm, there being movement and physicality. So how are you building your muscles? How are you building endurance or flexibility? The apple there being nutrition, obviously very important to stay hydrated, get adequate amount of proteins and minerals and carbohydrates for what you're doing in your day. The timer there, mainly representing recovery, so stretches, injury rehab, taking personal days is a huge one as well. But arguably the most important thing with recovery is sleep. I work with a lot of younger athletes, and the main problem that I see with their ability to focus or regulate emotions is they're not getting adequate amount of sleep at night. So making sure that not only you're getting enough sleep, but taking those personal days and rest days when they're necessary. Finally, the one up top there, I may be a little biased, but it's the brain and talking about your mentality. So your confidence, your focus, your ability to maintain within the moment, ability to deal with pressure. So all those things are very important. But what I'm here today to talk about you with is the mentality and the mental training. And what it comes down to when we're wanting to pair mental skills with health and wellness or build that mental muscle, it comes down really to 2 basic things. The first one being self-awareness. So are you aware of what motivates you, what drives you? But are you also aware with how you perform under pressure, how your body reacts to stress? Are you able to refocus under pressure? Are you aware of what distracts you or perhaps pulls you away from your goals? And the last one there is the fundamentals, the ABCs. So the 3 things that are directly under your control at all times. And we're going to get into those here a little later, the ABCs. But again, it's the things that matter. The things that you can actually control are the 2 things really that you should be focusing on. So these ABCs are what we're going to get into next. So the controllables, the ABCs. I'm sure many of you can guess what these letters represent already, but we will go through them together. A being for attention. So meaning your focus. Where is your focus directed? Either before, during, or after an activity. Are you also aware of what pulls your attention? Are you aware of where your attention is during an activity? Is it within you or is it external? So we're going to talk a little bit about focus here in a little bit with an activity. B being for breathing. So not just the mechanics of your breathing and the speed of your breathing, but the intent with your breathing, what your body is reacting with that breath. And C, arguably, probably the most important is communication. So how are you communicating with yourself? Are the thoughts that you're feeding yourself positive or negative? And are they helping or hindering your actual performance in day-to-day life? So the ABCs, the 3 things that are actually directly under your control with practice and commitment, obviously, your attention, your breathing, and your communication. So all that being said, we're going to get into our activity where we're going to see how these ABCs come in firsthand. So this is where I'd encourage you to pause the video if you need to gather these supplies or make a little bit of room. But what you're going to need is 3 simple things. You're going to need to clear a space to allow yourself to have some movement or some exercise. You're going to want to have a timer or a smartphone or a watch of some sort to record your time during this exercise. And then you're going to want a pen and paper to actually record your reflections and answer some activity questions following this exercise. So I'll give you guys a moment to find some space, gather your supplies, and you can revisit me here in a moment. You got your supplies. So this is part one of the activity. So you have a choice. You are either going to choose to perform a wall sit, which is the first diagram there. You can see her legs are bent as if she was actually sitting on a chair up against the wall, or you can choose to hold a plank position, that bottom figure there. So you're going to hold one of those positions, whatever one you prefer, for as long as you can, as long as possible. You're going to start your watch or your timer as soon as you begin that exercise. As soon as you get in that position, you want to have your watch or your timer close to you so you can press start. But once you start it, I want you to actually flip it over and not look at your timer until after you have completed that exercise. So until you have literally collapsed from that position, you can stop the timer and look at what time you've got. But while you're holding that position, I don't want you to look at your time. Once you've finished that exercise and stopped your timer, I want you to write down what time you got on your piece of paper and then proceed to part two. So good luck. Make sure you have adequate space, and let's see how we do. Okay, you guys, so well done. I wasn't able to observe, but I'm sure everyone did their very best. So we're now gonna take our pen and paper, record what time we just got on our activity, and answer the following reflection questions one at a time. So again, feel free to pause this video if you need to. So number one, how satisfied were you with your performance on a scale of 1 to 5, being 1 meaning not very satisfied or impressed with how you performed, 5 being totally satisfied, blew it out of the water, did a great job, thrilled. Second question there, did you find this attempt easy or difficult? So again, 1 meaning very, very, very easy, could have done it in my sleep, 5 being super, super difficult, very challenging for you. Third question there, kind of a two-parter, but where was your attention during this exercise? Meaning, what were some of the things you were perhaps focusing on during that exercise? I apologize. Number 4, I want you to take note of your breathing. So describe your breathing during that exercise. Again, might be kind of hard to reflect on now, but take note of maybe the speed of your breathing, the depth of your breathing. Maybe some of you weren't even breathing at all. Make note of that. And finally, what were you telling yourself during that exercise? What were some thoughts going through your head? Were you saying anything to yourself during that exercise to perhaps either keep your focus? And I want you to write those words or those phrases down. Okay, so now that we've done the activity, we're actually going to break down those fundamentals, those controllables, those ABCs. So A, as we've mentioned, is for attention. So your focus. What are you focusing on? Where is your focus? Is your focus actually productive or hindering your performance? So when we talk about focus, there's many ways to describe it, but 2 basic ways and 2 basic elements are your internal and your external focus. Your internal focus means, is your attention within you on perhaps your body's sensations, your breathing, your thoughts, how you're feeling within that moment. Internal focus means within you. External focus is the opposite. Is your focus outside of you? Perhaps on a visual cue in the room, perhaps on music that's playing, perhaps someone else that's doing the activity too, you're focusing on them. So the difference between internal and external focus, pretty obvious. One is within you, one is without you. But noticing what kind of focus helps you within that moment. Because there are moments where you'd need an internal focus versus an external focus. For this specific activity, I want you to know what kind of focus you perhaps had, and if you think that was actually something that helped you in that exercise, or if you'd like to change that for next time to perhaps perform a little differently. Another example for attention is having a specific goal. Very big difference between having a very vague goal and a specific goal. I had the analogy there with the flashlight, and as you can see, the center of that beam is the brightest. There is still parts of that that are illuminated further off in the distance. As you can see, it gets further away, the light gets a little dimmer, but it's still illuminated. A specific goal is very intangible with the center of that beam. So the brightest part of that flashlight can be represented as a specific goal. So for the activity that we just performed, you'll notice that I asked you all to do your best, give it your best shot. And that is, yes, a very vague goal, but it's a good stepping stone into becoming more specific. Now that you know where you lay with do your best, you can actually make your goal a little more realistic and specific. So you'll notice that while I said do your best, I didn't set up a goal right away as far as specifics. I didn't say hold a wall sit for 5 minutes or hold a wall sit for a minute. Mainly because I don't know you guys and I don't know what your skills are or you're experiencing with the exercise. But having it starting out with a vague goal is a good starting point, but you want to make sure that your focus is becoming more narrow and more specific to a goal that you can actually drive your motivations towards. So again, attention, your focus, things that with practice you can actually control. So B, for your breathing. I'm sure we have some people that are very in tune with their breath and maybe others that are learning about this for the first time. But there is a beneficial way to breathe, more than just we're breathing right now by listening to this video. We've probably all heard the importance of inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. There's a physiological sensation that happens to the body when we're breathing in that way. Physiological sensations as far as different hormones and endorphins, but also the way that your body reacts to that situation with that proper breath. So when we're talking about breathing, it's important to note the mechanics and tempo of your breathing. So not just the speed, but also how your body's reacting to that breath, what your body's doing on that inhale, what your body's doing on that exhale, perhaps where your mind is at when you're breathing. There's different strategies as far as proper and improper ways to breathe. There's activation strategies, meaning how to wake you up or get you ready to go. So that would be shorter breaths, shorter, quick inhales and exhales. The opposite would be relaxation. So longer exhales and shorter inhales. So one common method is the 4-7-8 method of relaxation, meaning you're inhaling for 4 seconds through your nose, holding your breath for around 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8. So the biggest distinguish there is the difference between the inhale for 4 and the exhale for 8. The longer the exhale through the mouth, the quicker the body will actually relax and get into that calm, cool, collected state. There is a visual here. I hope it works, but you're going to see a little hexagon appear in a moment. It's going to expand and then shrink. And it's going to expand for about 5 seconds and then shrink for 5 seconds. So I encourage you guys to look at this video for about a minute and inhale on the expansion and exhale on the shrinking. If you find it helpful to count along with that, I'll count for the first one so you can see what that looks like. But really take note of just being within this moment, just breathing, just focusing on the visual. So inhale and exhale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And one more time together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. So I'll keep this playing because it is kind of mesmerizing to watch. But I want you to note about how you just felt within that moment. Was it easy to count with that breath? Was it easy to inhale for 5 and exhale for 5? But also note how you feel afterwards. What does your body feel like? What does your mind feel like? Do you feel refreshed? This is a simple 5 and 5 breathing method. So again, counting and breathing, pairing those two together is a very good way, not only for your body for breathing, but also for your focus as well. So we'll move on. Probably the most important one, the most important controllable in your life is your communication. So what are your thoughts? What are you telling yourself? Very big thing with self-talk and how we're communicating, not only under pressure, but also in our day-to-day lives. I invite you to look at this great little picture here. It's obviously a Nike commercial, Nike's great slogan of just do it. But what you'll notice is actually there's a couple letters that are crossed out. The original slogan there actually reads, just don't quit. So when I'm saying those words to myself, just don't quit, just don't quit, what is the main word you hear out of those three words? Likely it's quit. Just don't quit. That is the main word, the most identifiable word that we hear in that slogan. When we're breaking it down, do we feel that quit is a positive or negative word? Most of you would say negative. So if I'm telling myself in that moment, just don't quit, my mind and my body just recognize quit. So because of that, the brain doesn't really know the difference between what is real and what's imagined. So if we're imagining the word quit, our body actually starts to react to that word in that way, quitting, shutting down, falling, giving up. If we want to change that negative self-talk statement to a positive one, we can see what Nike just did there. It becomes just do it. Because of that, we've eliminated the negative word quit. Our body and our mind do not hear the word quit anymore. They hear the positive, which is just do it. Might be more likely to hold that position or do that exercise for a little longer. I give a great example of this. I'm inviting you guys to maybe think of some other common examples of negative self-talk and how they can be corrected. I'll share with you one example I have. My roommate and I, we were living in Ottawa and we were hanging up these beautiful, expensive solar lights on our patio balcony. And we had spent about $50 on these expensive lights and we're tying them all to this balcony. And my roommate's going and tying the lights up with these zip ties that are the same color as the wire on these lights. And so my roommate says, Megan, you can go around and you can cut the excess zip tie, but make sure you don't cut the wire. It's the exact same color as the zip tie. I know you can get them confused. Don't cut the wire. So what am I doing? I'm going around with these pair of scissors all the way around the balcony, telling myself, don't cut the wire. Don't cut the wire. Don't cut the wire. What did I do? I cut the wire. $50 down the drain, in the doghouse with the roommate, not a good day. But the analogy is there that what I should have been telling myself is cut the zip tie, cut the zip tie. When I'm telling myself don't cut the wire, my brain hears wire, my focus is on the wire, evidently I will likely cut the wire. If I'm changing that self-talk to be more positive and productive, to say cut the zip tie, my brain hears zip tie, my focus is on the zip tie, I will cut the zip tie. So again, a little kind of funny example there, but I wanted you to think of some possible other common examples of negative self-talk, possibly that you've heard or that you experienced yourself. And think about breaking that down, identify if it's actually negative and how you can change that negative self-talk to actually be corrected to more positive, productive self-talk. So I'll invite you to think about that for just a moment. So all that being said, we've just gone over those ABCs. I want you to review your piece of paper that you wrote down earlier with your time and your reflections on attempt number 1. And I want you to compare your feedback that you wrote down on attempt number 1 with what you've just learned about those ABCs. So make note of how you could also apply those ABCs to better perform that exercise you just did. So I invite you to pause the video to go back and look at those ABCs. Again, A being for attention. Is your attention on a specific goal or specific actions to attain that goal? How is your breathing? What are those mechanics and tempos that we talked about? And finally, communication. What kind of thoughts are you feeding yourself? So again, review your previous reflections, compare that feedback with what you've just learned, and make note of how you would possibly make some changes to those ABCs, either one or all of them, to better perform that wall sit or that plank. Okay, so again, I invite you guys to pause this video and clear your space or get a drink and take a breath before we do this second round. But we are gonna do attempt number 2. So I want you to do the exact same position you did last time. So if you held a wall sit for your first exercise, I want you to hold a wall sit again. If you held a plank for the first time, I want you to stick with the plank for this position as well. So basically the same thing, okay? So I want you to hold either a wall sit position or a plank position, but I want you to actually hold it for 5 seconds longer than your first attempt. So for example, if someone held a wall sit for 30 seconds, I want you to set your timer and look at that timer and notice if you can extend that by 5 seconds. So some may choose to just let their timer run and make note of that if they get to 35 seconds, for example, or you can choose to set an automatic watch or an automatic alarm to extend that time by that 5 seconds. So 30 seconds is just an example. Another example would be if you held it for a minute, maybe you want to set your timer for a minute, 0.5 seconds, and hold it for as long as you can or until that timer goes off. The main difference here between this attempt and the last attempt is you can look at your watch or you can set a timer to know if you're on track with that goal. So at least 5 seconds longer than your first attempt. And just the same as last time, once you're done, I want you to record your time and then answer the next reflection questions. Good luck. Okay, you guys, so hopefully we did well. Hopefully everybody's feeling good and energized. Again, I want you to write that second time down either next to your first time or somewhere on your piece of paper. And I want you to answer these following reflection questions. Feel free to pause the video whenever you need. So first question, did you beat or surpass your previous attempt time by at least 5 seconds? Simple yes or no. There's no right or wrong. This is just for you. Second question, did you find this attempt easier or harder / more difficult than your previous attempt? And if so, how? So a little bit of diving deeper into what we just did. So did you find it easier or more difficult for the second attempt? And if so, why? Third question, did your focus change from attempt number 1? So again, here we're getting into that A, that attention. So how did your attention change? Did it change? And if so, how so? Third one there, or fourth one, sorry, describe your breathing. So again, get in touch with what you just reflected on for your breathing. Did it change from attempt number 1? If so, how so? Next one there, what were you telling yourself? So again, that self-talk, did it change from attempt number 1? Did you perhaps tweak what you were telling yourself the first time to be more positive and productive this second time around? And did it help? Did you notice any changes? And finally, the last one, it's always good to just reflect and also reflect but make progress for the future. So next time I try this exercise, I will write something down. Can either be related to your ABCs, can be related to something outside of this entirely, but I want you to write down some sort of goal that you can pursue next time you do this activity or next time you do something relevant to this exercise. So now that being said, guys, we're looking at applying the ABCs to the rest of your life to continue your journey outside of the Rec PEI Go For It program, continue using these mental skills and what you've learned over the last year to your day-to-day life. So again, the main takeaway from today is these are the 3 things that are actually controllable with practice and commitment. So A, again, being your attention. Where is your focus? Is it being productive or not so productive to what you're trying to accomplish? B, for your breathing, take note of how you're breathing in different situations. If you're in a very stressed out situation or an uncomfortable situation, take note of what your breathing is like. Take note of how much tension you're holding in your body. Noticing that a simple breath can actually release that tension and clear the mechanism. And finally, C, advocating the most important one is your self-talk and communication. So how are you speaking to yourself? Again, I've said it at the beginning of this, no one talks to yourself more than you talk to yourself. So make sure that you're being kind and feeding yourself nice positive thoughts that are productive. So thank you very much, you guys. And I always like to leave everyone with a quote. This is one of my favorites. I think it's quite applicable to what we just did today too, is energy flows where attention goes. So I want you to sit with that quote, maybe apply it to your life either today or moving forward. I thank you guys for your attention and participation today. Hopefully we all followed along clearly. I've included my email, my phone number, and my social media handle there, which is just at Mind Matters MPT, MPT meaning mental performance training. I do have a website, but I'm currently tweaking it up. So feel free to contact me through any of those mediums if you have any questions, comments. I'd love to hear your comments on this and your experience with this exercise today. I do have a little survey, monkey survey. It's probably not able to copy and paste, but I will put it on my Facebook page as well for those of you that would like to contact that directly. But feel free, it's voluntary. I'd just like to hear a little bit about you and your experience with this session. So again, you guys, thank you. I invite you guys to get out this summer on these beautiful days that we have and apply some mental skills to your life. Thank you very much.